Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my parents and sister after they cut me off? I had an affair with her husband. I had an affair with my sister's husband when I was 16. Yes, I regret it, and I truly am disgusted with my past self. When they found out, my sister publicly shamed me, fair enough, and told my parents, also fair. She chose to stay with her husband and blamed me for seducing him into being unfaithful. She forgave him and decided to reconcile, while I was left to face the consequences. My parents kicked me out, and I had to scramble to find somewhere to live. Every time I found a new job, my parents and sister would contact my co-workers to call me a homewrecker. They would harass me wherever I went, gossiping about my status. While no one treated me differently to my face, the stares and whispers were unbearable. I had to leave the city and move to another just to escape them, and for the sake of my mental health. Some people might say I'm overreacting, but they really followed me like the plague. I moved and met a nice elderly couple who never had kids, Mark and Helen. By that, I mean they offered me a place to stay if I needed it and were incredibly kind to me. I had my own place, but I often visited them. To this day, they mean the world to me. They knew what had happened, and I once even joked and said something along the lines of, "Aren't you afraid I'll steal your husband as a homewrecker?" Helen told me that being a homewrecker wasn't my entire personality, and to move on and learn from what I did. I eventually met my now husband, and we have 4 children, all adults now except for one who is 17. My kids know about my parents and the past situation, and they grew up considering Mark and Helen their grandparents, alongside my in-laws. Then, last Saturday, I received a message. I hope you can find it in your heart to read this message. I know we've been through so much pain and hardship, and I want to be honest with you about everything. I deeply regret how things have unfolded between us, especially the hurtful things we said and did in the past, and I am truly sorry for all the pain we caused you. Our actions have had lasting consequences. We never got to know our grandchildren, and I realize now how much we missed out on. Your sister's husband cheated again and left her for someone else. I see how much she's been suffering. She's now a woman left alone with 2 kids. One is disabled, and the other is autistic and struggling too. She's been so strong, but it's not enough. We are in a difficult situation ourselves, struggling financially. We don't have enough space or resources to help her directly, but we deeply want to support her and her children. I'm asking for your forgiveness. I know your father and I don't deserve it, but I hope you can see that we are trying to make amends, even if it's late. If there's any way you can help us with financial support or guidance to assist your sister and her children, it would mean the world to us. We want to do right by them, and by you, if you're willing to give us that chance. We love you. When I got that message, I was pretty angry. I haven't seen my parents in decades, and I'm not willing to see them or even consider helping my sister with her kids. I haven't responded yet, but my husband is willing to send her a very harsh letter on my behalf. We're considering just ignoring them, but would I be the a-hole if I let my husband write a harsh reply? Edit. He and my sister were 21, and I was 16. I got to live with my grandparents after they kicked me out. I'm also 43 now, if that wasn't clear. My oldest child is 23, so no, they are not little kids anymore. Now for the top comments. Your family thought you were the one at fault for the affair you had with your sister's husband. He seduced a child. It was all on him. I wouldn't even bother contacting them to tell them to go to hell. By all means, let your husband write a letter, but don't send it. It will just open the door for further hurt for you. A life well lived is your best way forward, with a wonderful Mark and Helen in your corner. Thank you. I honestly feel bad for what happened, and my sister deserved better than me. I take full blame for the affair, and my parents standing by them was a good thing. It showed that they supported their relationship and stood by them. That's good. He has now left her, so I'm not sure if it was worth it in the end, but they are not entitled to my money. In another message, they even suggested that they move in with me. How did they get your number? As tempting as it must be to send a scathing letter, I would suggest blocking and ignoring them. I'm guessing my grandma told them. My grandpa is dead, but I still have very low contact with my grandma. OP, I'm tacking onto one of the top comments in hopes you'll see this. You keep saying you don't blame your parents, but put yourself in their shoes. If a 21-year-old adult slept with your 16-year-old son or daughter, how would you feel? They chose a predator over you. Do not forgive them or give them a dime. Protect your peace. Cut them all off for good, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to babysitting my ex's child with his wife when she asked? I, 30 female, have 2 children, 11 and 8, with my ex. He's now married and has a 3-year-old, maybe a 2-year-old. I forget the age of his 3rd child, but he has a child with his wife. For the last 2.5 years, I've had custody of our kids. This came after a lot of messed up behavior toward them, including telling our kids I had died, and even recording them sobbing. Leaving them with a friend of his who was high and had drugs all around, and trying to force food into our younger child's mouth. He has no visitation with our kids. There have been 5 court appearances since he lost custody, and we had to meet with a child advocate 3 times since I was awarded sole custody. His wife is not someone I know. In the 6 years they were together, we spoke twice. The first time was before he lost custody, and she accused me of trying to ruin their wedding by making him work excessively long hours to pay an unreasonable amount of child support when they were trying to get married. The second time was after one of our meetings with a child advocate, and she blamed me for him not being much of a husband to her or a father to their kid because he was trying so hard to get his custody time back. She didn't outright say he was a lazy father, but I would guess it's more that than him doing what he can to get visitation with our kids, at least. So I never expected to hear from this woman. But last Tuesday actually, I was home because my kids had no school, and she called me at 8:30 saying she was going for a small procedure and needed someone to watch her child until 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. She told me she had nobody else and said it would be good for the kids to have some kind of contact. I told her no and ended the call. She called me back, but I didn't answer. Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, I received several texts from her asking what kind of mom I am and telling me I should be ashamed of myself for not helping in an emergency and denying the kids a chance to see each other. I don't feel bad about it, but I know this child is a half-sibling to my children, so I acknowledge there might be some wrong on my part for not helping. Maybe. Am I the a-hole? She might be trying to set you up. You'll watch their child, and then they will accuse you of mistreating the child or something similar. Do not ever watch their child. I was going to say, be the bigger person and watch the kid for a few hours and let your kids hang out with their sibling. But you are correct. There is too much liability here. Unless she has a great set of cameras recording everything in and out of her home, don't entertain the idea. And even then, assume those cameras are going to be used against you in a future custody battle. Why do I have the feeling that she'll drop the child off and never come back? I was more worried she'd make this a constant thing in the name of the kids seeing each other. I had to go back and read, where is her husband? Why can't he watch the child? I don't know, unwilling to take care of their child from the sounds of it. Not the a-hole, but why is she not blocked? Before this, I didn't have her number, but I think I've been a little too WTF to think of blocking, although muting and keeping it, in case of more custody battles, might be a better move. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not defending my parents or my brother when my parents were accused of favoritism and my brother was accused of being an attention hog? My parents have always favored my brother, 17 male, over me, 15 male. There are so many examples I could give, but I'll just list a few ways because the point of the post is that someone else has called them on it. My parents talk about my brother more. They invest more time in supporting his interests. They put more money into raising him, and they have way more photos of him than me. My brother's bad about it, because anytime I get any attention, he'll bring up something he did to get the attention back on him, or he'll do something in front of everyone to get people's attention. He does it every single freaking time. He even does this nonsense in school. He said some random stuff before just to get attention off me and onto him. Our extended family will typically let him hog the attention when he starts. So this past Saturday, my parents had their families over for a party to welcome my dad's youngest brother home. He went all over the world for the last 10 years. He was talking to me, and my brother interrupted with stuff about himself. My uncle tried to bring it back to me, but my brother kept interrupting. Eventually, my uncle took me to grab some ice cream for everyone since my parents forgot, and we talked on the car ride and in the store. When we got back, my brother went through all his football achievements. When my uncle was talking to my parents, he asked about us both, but they only answered about my brother and ignored him when he asked about me. Eventually, he cracked a joke that it must be strange to have some random kid living with them, and that made them defensive. They asked what it was supposed to mean. He said they act like my brother is their only child and I'm just other. He mentioned the house only showing one kid, the fact that they had nothing to say about me, and that they ignored any questions he asked about me. My brother told our uncle that there's just more interesting and worthwhile stuff to say about him, and then he repeated stuff he'd told him earlier when my uncle and I were talking. That's when my uncle called him an attention hog. Things were getting more and more awkward, but I loved it. I loved hearing someone finally call them out on it. My parents tried to defend the three of them, but my uncle was brushing it off. My parents tried to make me defend the three of them, but I ignored them. Nobody else said anything, and my uncle gave me his number before he left, and we've texted a bit since. My parents were so mad at me for not defending them and my brother. They keep telling me I owe them an apology and that I need to do better. I told them it should be them doing better, and they told me no, I should defend my family against unfair accusations. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If the truth hurts, do better. They don't think it's true, so they act like they're being attacked. As for his brother, wow, look at me, I'm so interesting. I had to look up his age again. What a baby. Not the a-hole. I know a couple who did the same with their two kids. Constantly talked about the older one and said the bare minimum about the younger one. I took to deliberately starting off asking how their kids were doing by specifically inquiring about the younger one. They ignored that and started on about the older one, never even circling back to say anything about the younger one. Very clear favoritism. Sorry you're experiencing it as well, but glad your uncle knows the score and will have your back. That always happens when they get asked about us. The thing that always confused me was they don't even try to hide it around others. I guess it helped that nobody ever called them out for it before. Not the a-hole. They will probably wonder why you stop talking to them as soon as you can. Sorry your parents are a-holes. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I'll divorce him after finding croutons in our baby's formula? This morning, I, 31 female, woke up to find my husband, 43 male, not in our bed. I figured he fell asleep on the couch like he often does after drinking. I was slightly annoyed because he's responsible for bringing the baby monitor into our room with him since he stays up much later than me. Since he didn't come into our room, the baby monitor never did either, and our 9-month-old is getting over an ear infection and has been waking up crying once a night. I can't hear this without the monitor as both doors are shut, and I have a fan running. As I was making the baby's bottle this morning, I opened the pantry to find a bag of croutons I made inside the formula container, with a few croutons loose in the formula and the top to the formula missing. I became instantly furious. For context, before we had our kids, a toddler and the infant, my husband said he'd stop drinking once we had children. When I was pregnant with our first, I'd wake up to a loud noise and walk out to find my husband passed out on the floor. Being so intoxicated, he fell asleep sitting up on a chair and then fell to the floor, and still didn't wake up. This happened at least 3 times. Since then, I've found him passed out on the couch several times, and passed out on the toilet a handful of times. On New Year's Day, we had a serious talk about him needing to slow down or stop drinking, as I was at my wit's end. I told him if we had to have this conversation again, it would be a much different talk. Since then, I found him on the toilet at least once, and just 6 weeks ago, I woke up one morning thinking a homeless person had rummaged through our cupboards. There was lettuce all over the kitchen. A cereal bag looked like someone had chewed through it to open it, then poured a bowl onto the floor, and I found my raincoat soaking up a random mess in the entryway. I'm not joking when I say I checked the security cameras thinking someone had broken in and had a feast while we slept. He tried to blame it on the 2-year-old, but the folded-up cereal box was a dead giveaway. So that brings me to today. He told me he had 2 drinks and didn't know how he ended up in the guest bedroom, or why. He thought it was our bed, but the guest bed didn't even have any sheets or pillowcases on it. Then finding the croutons was really just the tipping point. I confronted him and told him what I found and that there's no way he only had 2 drinks and ended up doing this. He's 6'4", 265 pounds. He swears that's all he had, and I told him if he doesn't stop drinking, I'm filing for divorce. He went to work, and we finally just talked after the kids went to bed. He said I'm overreacting, that he doesn't have a problem, and that it's not fair to give him that ultimatum. I told him it's my life too, and I don't have to stay in a marriage where I don't like the level of drinking, especially with 2 young boys. I agree I could have waited until tonight to have a better talk, but I think he needs to know how serious I am in order for him to make a change. Otherwise, I'm keeping my word and will file. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Boundaries only work if they're enforced. When are you going to put actions to your words? 1. He said he would stop drinking when you got pregnant. He didn't. 2. You asked him to stop drinking because you were at your wit's end. He didn't. 3. You told him if you had to have the talk again, it would be a more serious talk. But then you find him 2 more times drunk. Now he's lying about his drinking and trying to blame your children for his behavior. So, when are you going to enforce the boundary you set? You're not following through, so he has no reason to change. He's an alcoholic, and he's not at a place where he can admit that. He's lying about his drunk behavior, lying about how much he drinks, and now he's downplaying a very serious situation to gaslight you into believing he's fine and make you feel guilty for pointing out his drinking problem. He does have a problem. People only drink regularly until they pass out like that if they're an alcoholic. He cannot admit he has a problem because then he'd feel obligated to do something about it. You cannot change him or force him to change himself because then he'll just try to hide it from you. Ask yourself, do you love him and want him in your life and your children's lives as the person he is right now? Or do you feel like his behavior makes you and your kids unsafe in your own home? If you can't accept his alcoholism, then you should leave, for the sake of your and your kids' mental health and well-being. Being raised by an alcoholic is traumatizing and takes a long-term toll on both the children and the partner who puts up with it. Don't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It never works out. Source: a person raised by an alcoholic parent. OP: wait till your toddler tells a teacher or another adult that their daddy is passed out, drunk a lot, that he was naked, vomiting, etc. Kids say things as they are. They don't filter the truth because this is the life that they are living. You might find your home deemed not safe for kids. This option may be taken out of your hands, OP. I hope for the sake of the kids that you put them first and not your partner.